Tanks from Britain and Germany arrived in Ukraine earlier this week, amid an uproar after President Vladimir Putin announced he would deploy nuclear weapons to Belarus. A spokeswoman for the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Iryna Zolotar, said the British Challenger 2 tanks had arrived in Ukraine on Monday. "They are already in Ukraine," Zolotar told AFP. On the same day, the British government also announced that Ukrainian crews trained in London to operate Challenger 2 tanks were now ready to be deployed to the front lines. Ukrainian tank crews have completed Challenger 2 tank training in the UK and have returned home to continue their fight against Russia's illegal and unprovoked invasion. The UK Defence Minister said in a statement. The training itself began shortly after London announced in January that they would send 14 tanks to help Ukraine against Russia. The Ukrainian servicemen then went to the UK to learn how to operate and effectively identify and engage targets with the tank. It is inspiring to see the determination of the Ukrainian soldiers who have completed their training for the Challenger 2 tank in the UK, said British Defence Minister Ben Wallace. They returned to their homeland better equipped, but no less dangerous. "We will continue to support them and do everything we can to support Ukraine for as long as it takes." The tanks are so far expected to be used in counterattacks against Russia in the spring. In addition to British tanks, Leopard tanks from Germany have also arrived in Ukraine. "Our tanks have made it into the hands of Ukrainian friends as promised and on time," German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said in a statement. Spiegel's report says Berlin shipped 18 Leopards to Kiev. The German Ministry of Defense confirmed the report and added that 2 Buffalo armored recovery vehicles were also sent to Ukraine. About 40 Marder infantry fighting vehicles are also claimed to have arrived in Ukraine. The tanks, promised by Germany and Britain, arrived as the world was in an uproar after Putin announced he would deploy tactical nuclear weapons to neighboring Ukraine, Belarus. Putin announced the plans in response to reports that Britain would send anti-tank munitions to Ukraine containing low-grade uranium. Even though Britain denied it, Putin still considered the report dangerous so that Russia had to deploy nuclear weapons to Belarus. Putin's plan was criticized by various parties, including NATO and the European Union. Ukraine also criticized the call for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. The weapons assistance is part of an agreement by European Union countries that states it will contribute to sending 2 battalions of Leopard 2 tanks and 31 M1A2 Abrams tanks from the US. Germany promised 14 vehicles but increased it to 18 tanks to meet the Ukrainian battalion size. Meanwhile, Portugal contributed 3 tanks and Sweden contributed 10. Poland has supplied Ukraine with a battalion of the older Leopard 2A4 model. As promised, our tanks have arrived on time in the hands of our Ukrainian friends, said Boris Pistorius, German Defense Minister, on Monday evening. "I believe they can make a difference on the front lines." The vehicles were handed over at the Ukrainian border at the end of last week, news magazine Der Spiegel reported. In addition, 40 Marder infantry fighting vehicles and 2 tank recovery vehicles promised by Germany have also arrived in Ukraine. For security reasons, the German government did not comment on the delivery routes. These tanks. Ukraine has only a limited number of tanks from the Soviet or post-Soviet era. Ukraine says it urgently needs heavier armor for its defense against a Russian invasion. The German-made Kampfpanzer Leopard 2 tops the list. Armed with a 120mm smoothbore gun and 2 7.62mm machine guns, this 1970s design machine is the most popular tank in NATO's inventory. The Leopard 2 has a top speed of 42 miles per hour, efficient fuel, and the ability to fire with a high degree of accuracy even when maneuvering in rough terrain.